Armenia, a small country in the South Caucasus region, located between Eastern Europe and Western Asia. As a country with a majority Christian population, Armenia is known as the first country in the world to adopt Christianity as an official religion in the 4th century. However, behind the strong Christian dominance, there is a long history and interesting reality about the presence of Islam in this land. The history of Islam in Armenia began shortly after the death of the Prophet Muhammad. In the 7th century AD, the Umayyad Caliphate began to expand its territory towards the Caucasus. Armenia, which was at that time under the control of Byzantium and Persia, became the target of Muslim expansion. Islam began to be known in Armenia through military expansion and trade interactions. The Umayyad Caliphate and then the Abbasids controlled the territory of Armenia and established various military garrisons. Although the Armenian people remained Christian, the influence of Islamic culture and law was still felt, especially in cities such as Dvin and Yerevan. At that time, Arab Muslims established settlements in Armenia. In some periods, there was collaboration between Muslim rulers and Armenian nobles. However, political tensions and wars were also frequent, especially when power passed into the hands of the Seljuk dynasty and then the Muslim Ilkhan dynasty. Entering the Middle Ages, the influence of Islam grew stronger in the region of Western Armenia, which was then part of the Ottoman Empire. Many Turkish and Kurdish Muslims settled in the region. Meanwhile, Eastern Armenia was under the rule of the Safavid Persians, who adhered to Shia Islam. Under the Ottomans and Safavids, Muslim and Christian populations lived side by side in the millet system. This was a form of government in which religious communities were given internal autonomy. However, relations between the groups were not always peaceful, especially when there were conflicts between the great powers. During that time, the Muslim community in Armenia grew significantly, especially in large cities such as Yerevan, Nakhichevan, and Kars. Many mosques, madrasas, and Islamic infrastructure were built. Entering the 20th century, Armenia's history changed drastically. After the fall of the Russian Empire and the establishment of the Soviet Union, Armenia became one of the Soviet republics. The atheist Soviet regime severely restricted religious practices, both Christian and Islamic. During the Soviet era, many mosques were closed or converted into warehouses, museums, or other public spaces. Muslims in Armenia, most of whom are ethnic Azeris, faced tremendous political and social pressure. But the biggest blow to the Muslim community in Armenia came in the late 1980s, when the conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan over the Nagorno-Karabakh region escalated. Thousands of ethnic Azeris, who were Muslims, fled or were expelled from Armenia, leaving only a handful of Muslims in the country. Today, Armenia is a country with a very small Muslim population. It is estimated that less than 1% of the Armenian population is Muslim, with most of them immigrants or diplomats from Muslim countries. We are a small community, but we try to practice Islam peacefully. We have the only active mosque in Yerevan, the Blue Mosque, which also serves as a cultural center. The Blue Mosque in Yerevan is an important symbol of Islam in Armenia. Built in the 18th century by the Qajar dynasty of Persia, it has been restored and is now managed jointly by the Armenian and Iranian governments. Being a minority in a religiously homogeneous society is certainly not easy. The Muslim community in Armenia faces challenges in terms of social, cultural, and even public perception. In Armenian society, which is deeply rooted in the Orthodox Christian tradition, Muslim social life is not prominent. But behind the scenes, there is a cultural dynamic that enriches the reality of modern Armenia. We cannot deny that the Islamic cultural heritage has made significant contributions, especially in architecture, music, and even in the Armenian vocabulary. There are traces of Persian and Arabic left in our heritage. The Blue Mosque in Yerevan is the most striking example. With its distinctive Persian tiles, beautiful calligraphy, and peaceful gardens, the mosque is not only a place of worship, but also an important location for cultural exchange. Tourists from Iran and Muslim countries often visit it, as do students and researchers. This mosque welcomes visitors from various backgrounds. Many Armenians come here out of curiosity, wanting to know about Islam. It can be the beginning of a dialogue. Armenia, despite sharing borders with two Muslim-majority countries, Turkey and Azerbaijan, has warmer relations with Iran, as well as Arab and Central Asian countries. Our relations with Iran are very close. Iran is one of Armenia's largest trading partners, and the two countries have long had strategic cooperation. Iran also plays an important role in guarding the Blue Mosque. In addition to Iran, Armenia also has good diplomatic relations with several Middle Eastern countries, including the United Arab Emirates, Lebanon, and Syria, which also have large Armenian diasporas. However, relations with Turkey and Azerbaijan are still overshadowed by historical conflicts, including the Armenian genocide and the dispute over the Nagorno-Karabakh region. This has also influenced public perception of Muslims, although not directly aimed at Islam as a religion. Who are the Muslims living in Armenia today? Most are foreigners, diplomats, students, and workers from countries such as Iran, India, Syria, and Egypt. But there are also locals who have embraced Islam. Armenian convert. I converted to Islam because I was attracted to the spiritual values of the Quran. At first it was difficult for the community to accept, but I tried to explain that being a Muslim does not mean being an enemy of Armenia. I am still a citizen who loves my country. Stories like this are still rare, but the existence of converts shows that Islam still has universal appeal, even in a land dominated by other traditions for thousands of years. One of the biggest challenges for the Muslim community in Armenia is access to formal Islamic education. There are few madrasas or centers for Islamic studies in the country. Most Islamic knowledge is obtained through the internet, foreign books, or informal learning from fellow Muslims. I learned Islam from my parents and from YouTube, but we long for a more structured learning center, not for aggressive preaching, but to get to know Islam well and explain to others that Islam is not a threat. Amidst these limitations, there is a glimmer of hope through academic cooperation with Islamic countries. Student exchanges, interfaith seminars, and cross-cultural studies are ways to bridge understanding between Islam and Armenian society. What is the future of Islam in Armenia? With its small numbers, the Muslim community does not have great political or economic power. However, they have great opportunities in cultural diplomacy, education, and interfaith dialogue. Islam in Armenia will never be a majority force, but it can be a moral force and a bridge of relations between nations. The Muslim community can be an example of harmony and tolerance in peaceful plurality. Islam in Armenia may not be visible, but it is present in the soft chanting of prayers in the small halls of the Blue Mosque, in the lively discussions of young people of different faiths, and in the hope of a more inclusive future. Because history is not written by the majority, but also by the minority that endures, adapts, and enriches civilization. From the Arabian Desert to the Caucasus Mountains, Islam has made its mark in Armenia. Though small, its presence is part of the interconnected mosaic of world cultures. A reminder that every religion, wherever it is, carries a universal message: peace, justice, and compassion. In the midst of globalization and shifting identities, Armenia's Muslims play a role that may be quiet but not insignificant. They serve as guardians of universal values in a unique local context, representing the spirit of coexistence amidst difference. Today's young generation of Armenian Muslims live at a crossroads between the heritage of their ancestors and the realities of their time. They are challenged to preserve their identity without becoming exclusive and to build dialogue without losing their principles. In the small spaces of their communities, they build bridges, not fortresses. Their role may not be widely highlighted, but that is precisely where their strength lies: in their modesty, in their loyalty to their values, and in their persistence in continuing to be present and contribute to the larger society. Because being a Muslim in Armenia is not about numbers, but about meaning. And as long as there are those who pray in silence, who forge friendships amidst differences, and who believe that every human being has a place in a just order, then Islam in Armenia will live on. Not as a symbol of power, but as a small light that never goes out. A light that shows that pluralism is not a threat, but a gift. With that light, the Muslim community in Armenia continues to tread a path full of challenges, but also full of opportunities. They serve as a reminder that existence is not always about numbers, but about contribution to peace, understanding, and the sustainability of living together.